Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
For this week's episode, we host Mr. Chris Ecton, the Head SportsTurf Manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris is my former boss, one of my mentors in this industry, one of the best that I've ever met, and it really has been a great opportunity to learn from him, and I was excited to get him on the podcast because I've got to learn so much from him. In this podcast, he does a fantastic job of educating our students on different aspects of maintaining a field in the National Football League. We really dive into all the different aspects, from cultural practices, dealing with different aspects of having not only an NFL football team, but also a college football team playing in the same arena on every weekend. He explains how he has 10 straight weeks during this time of COVID where he's had to have a football game each and every week, whether it's the Steelers or the Panthers. Chris does a phenomenal job explaining the importance of sodding and different needs when coming to making a plan, working with others, especially in the organization with Pittsburgh Steelers, understanding that you play a role and there's a give and take between people higher up into the front office and understanding what he needs at certain times and what they need at certain times, and really working on communication, understanding that everyone needs to work coherently in order to achieve the goal that they want with a professional stage, safe playing surface for their players. We had a blast on this episode. Again, Chris is a personal friend of mine. I was extremely grateful for him to come on, and it was just a great opportunity for our students to learn and to really see what it takes to be a sports turf manager in the National Football League. Chris, we really appreciate you taking the time. We hope everybody enjoys this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Welcome, everybody, to the 11th episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. Today we have a very close personal friend of mine, Mr. Chris Ecton, the Head SportsTurf Manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers, my former boss. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, thank you for coming on. Like I said, you're my favorite. I'll say it on the podcast for the recording for everyone to hear. Pittsburgh Steelers are doing pretty hot this year, huh? 9-0, having a great year so far.
Yeah, won every one, so that's good.
That's always a good sign, you know. A 0 at the end of the record is always good. How has it been for you guys with everything going on with COVID and it's just adapting? I talked to you yesterday. We were talking about how training camp wasn't at the normal training camp site and it was in the stadium and everything is really restricted. How did you deal with all the different aspects? I mean, heavy traffic on your game field, making sure that everything's ready to go just like a normal year.
Well, training camp, we usually go to St. Vincent College, so you have 3 natural grass fields and a synthetic up there, and we did everything at the stadium, so there's only one field there. So that was a little bit challenging, but luckily we had a pretty good field left over from last season, and we didn't have any events this summer because of COVID, so it was in really good shape, and we were able to get everything done we needed to do there on that field. And the stadium, we host Pitt to University of Pittsburgh games, so we put in a new field right before we started having games, which was challenging too, but we made it through so far anyway.
So you were just saying you're not only in charge of the Steelers field, but also Pittsburgh. And obviously I know how it's sort of run there and from being there. What does your job sort of entail? Could you sort of explain to the kids the different sites that you take care of? Like you just said, St. Vincent College is the training camp site. There's a practice facility on the south side of Pittsburgh. Could you sort of just explain to the kids what your job entails, not just with the sites themselves, but obviously you have University of Pittsburgh and the Steelers. Just give them an idea of what your job is.
Yeah, so Heinz Field, all the maintenance on that field, and all the games, home games for the Steelers, and then the University of Pittsburgh. And then we have about 2 acres of landscaping around that stadium. Well, actually, it's more than 2 acres, but about
Say it's a
an
lot
acre
more.
and a half. Well, we do a lot of mowing for the Sports and Exhibition Authority, but we don't do any maintenance down there. Just mowing. We mow about 8 acres down along the river, and then like an acre and a half of grass or so inside the stadium block, and then all the planter boxes, and there's 160 maple trees and stuff. All that landscaping associated with that stuff. A lot of ornamentals and stuff. And then we have the UPMC Rooney Sports Training Complex, where we have 4 outdoor fields, 3 natural and 1 synthetic. 2 of those fields, the synthetic and 1 of the natural, is for the University of Pittsburgh, and then 2 natural fields for the Steelers to practice on. And then we have a full 120-yard indoor field. And then we do a lot of maintenance up in St. Vincent all year long, but pretty much all the maintenance from May until the end of training camp in most years, just not this year with COVID. So.
And I was going to get to this later, but you mentioned it. What I loved about my time there is that you are so passionate, just not about turf grass, but you said, again, taking care of the ornamentals and everything around the stadium. You cared as much as what outside looked like than the inside. So could you sort of explain how you gained that passion for such, I mean, it's such a unique part of the industry that a lot of people don't take note of. And really they only see like people like us are only taking care of grass, right? Well, you do so much more than that. Can you sort of explain how you became so passionate about that space as well?
Well, passionate about some of it, I guess. I mean,
there's a few things. Obviously, there's plenty of things that annoy you, annoy us.
Yeah. I mean, when you get out of school, I mean, most of my coworkers, like not my contemporaries, not other turf guys, but most of the people that I work with at the stadium and the practice facility, they pretty much think that you learn about all things green, not just grass. So they're always asking you about, hey, I got this bush in my yard. It has leaves, what is it, and, or I have this tree, or like my flowers don't look exactly right, So it was mainly just trying to make sure that I had at least some kind of answers for them, that way I didn't look
just enough to make them think that, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and then just tinkering around with my own landscaping and stuff. And, I always enjoyed like, all of the nature, like hiking in the woods or whatever, or just, I kind of grew to love it as probably after college more, the landscaping portion of everything,
Gotcha. It's definitely an acquired taste because I always enjoyed it. It just wasn't something that I really was like, this is what I want to do with my life. You know what I mean? But learning with you and then Casey Underwood at Tech, I mean, it's crazy to think about as much as I learned from you guys about landscaping compared to landscape professionals that I've learned from. But you just mentioned how you got interested after college. You're a graduate of Kentucky, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yep, University of Kentucky. Yep.
Sorry,
No,
it's like the Ohio State and all that.
No. Well, I mean, no, I don't care.
I know. What was your time like there? And could you sort of give us an idea of what your journey was from when you graduated to where you are now at the Steelers at Heinz Field?
I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I grew up on a farm, in kind of northeastern Kentucky. And I just, I thought I was going to, try engineering or whatever. And then, I don't know, maybe I partied too much. I was just, not like quite meeting the minimum GPA for engineers there. So, and it just, I was looking around and I'm like, you know what, I don't know if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So one of my buddies kind of talked me into like taking a couple classes in agronomy, and I just kind of fell into turf a little bit. I went and talked to Dr. David Williams, who's passed away now, but he was a turf professor there, and he was like, hey, if you want to do this, you need to go get some work experience. So, do you want to work on a golf course, or or you can go work for, the sports field department here at the university. They're always looking for people. And I was like, hey, you know what? That sounds pretty good, because, that semester my schedule wasn't all that great, so I'm like, I could probably pop in and out of there and work quite a bit. Whereas, if I had to drive off campus to go to a course, a golf course, then I wouldn't be able to do as many hours. So I just started working there, and it just kind of just went from there. I wound up taking a semester off, going to the University of South Carolina and working for the athletic department there on the fields for 9 months. And then I had a lot of jobs in college. But just got lucky and wound up working on the crew with the Steelers straight out of school in 2001. And been here in some capacity ever since. So I don't know if that answers all your questions.
Yeah, it does. When did
Probably
you move up to the head position?
It was 2004, I believe. I think. Yeah.
It's been quite a journey since then, huh?
Yeah.
So,
I guess so.
So sort of discussing that journey, how have you seen sort of the job change over the years since, again, even since when you first started in Pittsburgh? How have you seen it sort of grown? Whether it, again, I don't know specifically like facility wise, what things have been since you started, technology wise, different machinery you're using, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is the same. I don't know. It's been 20 years, so a lot of stuff's different too, I guess.
How has the job changed? We'll talk about specifics. Has anything been added to your job since you first started?
we do all the testing for the league and stuff. We've been doing that for probably 9 seasons now. Maybe not quite that long, but yeah, that's something new. It's always getting more. There's always technology is always moving to put values on things that we thought we had a good handle on. Not many people were measuring moisture in the 90s. With a tool. Not too many people were measuring hardness. I mean, a few people were. Not to the extent that we're doing that now.
What are those tests specifically? If you could explain to the kids the purpose behind them, maybe, and why, again, 8 seasons ago, this might have shown up because of player safety and whatnot.
Yeah, it was all for player safety. So we're measuring hardness, moisture, and we're measuring traction now on the field for every game. And we're sending those numbers into the league, and everyone's sending them in from every field that has a game that week. So they're building a pretty good database of all these values and learning some stuff from all of that data that's been collected for all these seasons. So that's always changing a little bit. SOD has come a long way in that time period. I mean, Bermuda grass used to be really hard to sod, before you guys started growing it on plastic. And there's been a lot of incremental, changes, like every time a new sprayer comes out, there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more computerized. Everything's a little bit more computerized, wireless remotes for things now and stuff. But a lot of it's still the same,
Gotcha. So you just mentioned Bermuda grass growing on plastic, and I know Pittsburgh's Kentucky bluegrass all the way, and we'll get into that in a second. Have you ever considered, especially with like the hybrids coming out like Tahoma 31 or anything, have you considered doing a Bermuda field at all, or any discussion about it?
Yeah. We've discussed it within our organization, and I've definitely thought about it. We haven't ever pulled the trigger on it, but it's probably not something that we could. It would be something that would just be a half a season thing or like a summertime thing. It probably wouldn't be something where we could overwinter and expect much from it the following year with the winters here in Pittsburgh. Even with the newer varieties, I mean, maybe with some blankets you could get it to overwinter, but we're playing football through the winter, so it's kind of hard to like keep it protected all the time. But yeah, I've definitely thought about it with some of the concerts and special events and having training camp and then having like 4 days in early September or late August to flip a field to, get ready for maybe, 6, 7 football games in a 1 month time span, so
Gotcha.
always, yeah.
With again, you're talking about resodding. Could you, because it's very unique for Pittsburgh from what I've learned, and I know other stadiums are resodding and whatnot, but you have the schedule that you guys have come up with over the years based on the games played and how it's University of Pitt and the Steelers, and you guys host the state championship for Pennsylvania. Could you sort of explain to the kids the idea behind what you're doing? And again, it's for player safety and for the health of the field. So could you just give them an idea of what occurs during the time frame for the season?
Sure. I mean, hopefully I don't leave anything out, but the first thing we did was we worked with the sod farm to make sure the grass is grown to, the way, where it's going to come in the way we want it. So we'll start like talking with those guys 16 months, 18 months out from when we were actually going to get the sod, and they're doing different things with our sod that's going to come for NFL football or some college and MLB guys, we're seeding it 2 different directions and top dressing it and keep it under growth regulation and mowing a little bit lower all year. But for us at the stadium, we wait until the schedule comes out for, all the teams, the Western PA championships, like you said, high school. And then we have, the Steelers schedule and the University of Pittsburgh schedule. And normally I'll just pick out dates where we'll either be doing a part of the field or maybe, the whole field. And we put that on the calendar. And most of the time, you can always, sometimes you have to switch it because of weather or whatever, but most of the time we're pretty much on that schedule for each year.
This might be a dumb question, but I'm sort of curious. With all the moving parts with different coaches, obviously you have Mike Tomlin, and is it still Narduzzi? Is he still there?
Yeah, Narduzzi. Yep, still
Okay.
Narduzzi.
Lovely. How do you live up to both of their standards? Is it just the Steelers standard and the University of Pitt has to deal with it? Is it you're working with both sides, or just sort of what's the standard set for you from both organizations or school organization when it is, and how do you deal with the different groups?
I mean, the best way to deal with it is just make it good, and then usually everyone's happy.
Best way to explain it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, coaches, we, oftentimes we'll have a go between where they're talking to somebody that's, giving us info and things. But there's a lot of people that look at our field every week in our organization, and form, I guess, an opinion on it, or like, so it's not just coaches, it's our owners and our stadium management and, coaches, players, everyone. But, you just try to communicate everything that you're going to do, and, like I say, we're sending out that plan. Everybody has that plan that needs to have it in our organization, before the season starts. So they have a good idea of, hey, this is what we're going to do, and these are our expectations, and you always have to be light on your feet, just because weather can mess things up all the time. And one bad weather weekend where you had 2 games can just wreck your whole plan really quickly. But just communicating up front normally. I mean, just being prepared, being proactive versus reactive, I think is the best way to do it.
And you're talking about front office and whatnot. Your job entails somewhat not of an office job, but the connection between the crew and their work and the front office. And I remember many times when I was there, people were looking for you, and you would be somewhere working, and I would be like, I don't know where he is. I'm sorry. how do you balance those 2 different jobs and different aspects of what your job brings to you?
Well, first off, I always tell all of my interns and all of my guys, if somebody's looking for me, that I'm really definitely working hard wherever I am.
I'm pretty sure everyone knows that, and no one would ever question that ever.
I'm sorry. What were you asking?
How do you balance between the office job versus your job, what you really truly want to be doing?
Usually I'm not that great at like paperwork and stuff. So I don't know. Usually I procrastinate, put that off until the very end, and then I'll just go paint something or something. But yeah, you just, you try to make sure everyone in the organization has what they need, because oftentimes I need things from those people, so I have to make sure they have what they need. So when I need something, I can expect them to, help me out. So it's kind of just a give and take kind of thing. Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll shift back towards turf. I was just curious. So Kentucky Bluegrass, what cultivar are you growing, and how have you seen sort of progression wise? You're obviously resodding enough. Have you changed over the years with different developments? The other thing, and we'll get into it in a second, but like management practices for you specifically, again, it differs from sport to sport. And I saw that when I was there working for both the PNC and Heinz. Like, what is it that you're doing to ensure the 400-pound men are properly having footing and traction every single game they play?
Basically it starts at the sod farm. Most of the time those guys are going to know the best varieties for football, because they're going to be the same varieties that gets the sod out the door the quickest. Chances are they're going to want to use the most aggressive varieties, so their turf is ready to, it establishes and will cut and hold together to, so they can sell the sod. So I don't get too caught up in varieties. I feel like that's way more important for Bermuda grass than it is Kentucky bluegrass. A lot of the midnight varieties and stuff aren't that great for divot resistance, but one thing that I've learned, from a lot of university research is that once they're under growth regulation, under a product like Primo Max, for instance, the varieties of Kentucky bluegrass that are the worst against divot resistance get way better than the ones that are better in the beginning. So we're always spraying growth regulators anyway. That kind of levels the playing field a lot across the board for the bluegrasses. Yeah. And, baseball in Pittsburgh, you're probably more worried about like spring green up, whereas like we're not quite as worried about that, as much about that, but, just more, aggressive varieties. But like I say, the sod farms already want to grow those anyway, most of the time. So.
Gotcha. Awesome. So what is it that, again, plant threat wise, what are you concerned about specifically in your setting? Obviously budgetary wise, you have the space to sort of deal with those issues, but things like POA pressure, disease pressure, What are you most concerned about in your space?
Just having just a safe field, all that stuff. I don't, the toughest part is, we're growing bluegrass, like you said, and we're getting on that stuff in late July and August when it's at its weakest point. So you're trying to make sure you limit all the stresses through the summer, so you keep as much to the, Kentucky bluegrass grows most of its roots in the springtime, and then you spend the rest of the summer trying not to lose them. And every time there's more, the more stress, the plant goes through during the summer, the more carbohydrates it's going to try to take from the roots. So you just try to, limit the stress as much as you can. And you do that through, like I say, using growth regulators chemically, using products like Tenacity to keep grassy weeds like Poa annua, at bay a little bit, and just through cultural practices, like water, mowing, not mowing too much off of the plant, and keeping a good tabs on your watering schedule, not watering too much, so.
Now, in any other year, obviously, without having training camp in this stadium and whatnot, are your practices, like your cultural practices, changing from place to place, from Hines to the practice facility? And then obviously, you're not putting as much money into the fields up at St. Vincent, because again, those are their fields. They should be putting money towards that. But are you changing major, like, between sites, or is it pretty much all the same?
Not a whole lot. I mean, growing grass is kind of growing grass. The only thing we're changing is like when we have events, like we have this event coming up at the stadium, or like, our practice facility. In a normal year, we have people running around out there all the time, whether it's rookie camp, mini camp, OTAs, or Pitt's spring ball, or through the summer, Pitt's camps for Little Panther camp, 7-on-7 passing camp, lineman camp, specialist camp, all those kind of things. We always have some guys out there. So, we're watering a little bit differently there, maybe, than at the stadium. But at the stadium, we could have concerts or, soccer games, all kinds of things. So, if it's not, it's the same if we're not dealing with events,
And so one of the questions I was going to ask was all these events, and it seemed to have sort of skyrocketed since when you first started in the 2000s. Concerts are huge now. When I was there was 4, I think, over the summer. Just day-to-day events where maybe randomly they come up with an event for a fundraiser for some organization. How have you sort of adapted your job, and with everything that's going on, how do you adapt to those events, especially with the concerts? Obviously, usually there's a football field that you're going to cover for more than 2 days, at most, hopefully 2 days. But how do you deal with those different aspects of your job and sort of being added on to stressing out your grass in the middle of the summer?
Yeah, I mean, just communicating the best I can, if you're going with pedestrian flooring, you can easily save some of that grass if you're having a concert. If you're doing drivable flooring, usually that grass is going to need to be replaced with thick cut sod. If you're having an event, especially for football, if it's an event coming up pretty quickly. So it's, you just have to get pretty good at like sodding mostly for concerts. The other things you just, like commercials and foot traffic events and stuff, you just come up with a list of, over the years, where you've messed up, telling them that they could do something that you probably shouldn't have let them do, like taking a gas powered generator out on the field, and like those guys, like,
Nice guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, I just have like a list of like, hey, listen, these are the things that you can't do. These are the things that you can do, and you just you have to do those things. I mean, that generate revenue. I mean, that's how we all get, have jobs and things. So you have to embrace it and try to do the best you can.
Honestly, from speaking with other turf managers and where I've worked and whatnot, you have the biggest sense of it's going to be okay. Like you always told us, if you can't have a cart drive on your field, how do you expect a player to be able to play on it? Stuff like that, where I found it just like mesmerizing, because I'm like, no one's ever told me that it's okay to do this. But
Sorry, I got a crazy dog around here.
no, it's totally fine. I got two of them somewhere. Thank goodness they're not here right now. But that's what I remember. And another thing was when you was like, don't overthink it. It's just grass. But
Yeah,
with everything, again, with events and whatnot, how have you sort of seen, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Again, I apologize.
Well, I mean, expectations have gone up a lot, and that's because guys are doing such great jobs around the country at other stadiums. People at our stadium were always like, "Hey, how are they having that concert, not resodding?" Or like, "How are they doing this?" I get calls from other guys around the league going, "Hey, our operations guy was at your stadium and you guys did 4 football games in 8 days. And like, how did you do that? And why did you let that know that could be done or whatever, now we're going to get asked to do that." So, I mean, most of the stuff is, guys doing great jobs. So, now, management kind of expects it, or you become, kind of, you become, a victim of your own success, kind of, like, "Oh, he'll take care of it. He did that last time," or you walk in there and say, "Hey, we can't do this because of these reasons." And they're like, "Oh, you always say that." And then it's always okay, So like I say, you just, you have to realize that, they're generating revenue, but I mean, it all comes down to making sure that whatever business you're in, whether it's football or baseball or soccer, whatever's paying the main bills, you have to take care of first, and then, then you try to be as reasonable as you can with everything else. And there's a lot of give and take with it. Like, "Hey, we'll let you do this, but if we can like push this back, or like, if you can help me out here, I'll, let you do whatever you want, in the off season, or something, So it's just working with people normally,
Gotcha. Sounds great. What does a normal game week look for you guys with the crew and what you're doing, sort of, say post pit game on a Saturday? What are you doing Monday to Sunday for a Steelers game?
I mean, it just depends on, what the weather is and how long we have between games and everything. But normally, for a game, we show up 6 or 7 hours before kickoff and set up the sidelines, heated benches. If it's, if it's that time of year, sideline covers, pads, pylons, all that kind of stuff, emergency card, everything that's going down on the field. We do all of that, and then we wait for kickoff, and then during the game we'll raise the nets up and down, for the guys kicking field goals, and then at post game we're cleaning all that stuff up that we put out pre-game, and then normally sweeping the field. Sometimes we mow, and then a lot of times we'll have pre-germinated seed, ryegrass seed ready to go, and we'll walk divots after the game. And that's about it, and then Monday we come in, maybe bird drain the sidelines, do our testing if we have to send in traction numbers for the league. And I mean, during the season, you don't get to do a whole lot to the field, just because you're just kind of like, hey, we're going to mow, spray, water, make sure it has all the nutrients it needs, all the water it needs to like recover and get ready for the next game. Because I mean, even this season, we're going to do 6 pick games, 8 regular season Steeler games, and probably a few playoff games, hopefully. So, I mean, we're
8-0
I think
probably going to happen.
We're averaging a game a week right now anyway. So it's like we just did our 10th football game this past weekend. So, yeah.
Just
so
rolling.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of weekends. So
that is for sure. One of the favorite things from the students in our program is the opportunity to paint the field here for our Friday night games. What are you guys doing specifically paint wise? How much paint are you using? I just want to sort of give them an idea of how much we're using is nothing compared to other sites, and obviously we have a different standard obviously set. We don't have national televisions worried about what it looks like. So
Right.
if you give an idea of what that is, that would be great.
Yeah, that's always changing for us. But our next Steeler game, is Thanksgiving night against the Ravens. So we'll probably use, I don't know, maybe 50 gallons of white paint, probably like 15, 20 gallons of, Steeler gold, maybe 10, 12 gallons of Steeler black. And then we have NFL red, NFL blue for the hypercycloids on this, which are the little shapes on the Steeler logo. And then we're also going to put the NFL shields in. So we'll probably use 5 gallons of blue and red as well. So it's, what's that, like 85 gallons, maybe 90 gallons, something
Close
like
to
that.
it. Yeah, close to it.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Sort of shifting a different direction. Obviously, you've been a huge mentor to me as in my career. You have a hub for Penn State guys. So for all the people that I know, they all went to Penn State. When I came working with you, I was like, what do you do to get all these Penn State guys? And how did I get here? How have you sort of seen over the years? I mean, you've mentored some of the best people in the industry that I know. Billy is one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he had worked for you for 3 years in a row and got the job the year that I got there. How is it that you're such a great teacher and educator in the sense of you have a full-time job maintaining a field at the same time you can still educate people to the point where they are now?
Most of the time when I take interns, I want them to tell their buddies that are younger than them to come intern for me, so I get the best guys. So I mean, a lot of guys come from Penn State because that's a big program. There's a lot of students there, so there's more. It's just a numbers game. But I mean, a lot of it is just like, hey, man, I worked for the Steelers last year. Those guys are great to work for. I learned a whole lot. They took care of us when we had to work hard, but we got to learn a lot, and we got taken care of when we more than we have at other places we worked. So I'm just trying to always trying to make it the best that I can, and you don't want one of your students or someone that's worked with you before going somewhere else and not knowing how to do something, or so I feel like it's a reflection on who you are, by what everyone knows that has worked with you, if that makes any sense. So, and I remember, it wasn't that long ago that I was a student, and I worked for some great guys that I always appreciated when they would tell you why we had to do something, especially if you didn't think it made any sense, or if it was like something that was hard, like you thought was kind of like not the best job in the world. I always appreciate when somebody's like, well, hey, look, this is what we have to do now, and this is the reason, but hey, I'm going to throw you a bone tomorrow, and you can mow if that's your favorite thing, or you can paint if that's your favorite thing, so just trying to, realize that, the guys are there to help you out, but they're there to learn too, and I think you can do both, so that's That's why I try to do it. Plus, I mean, I may need a job someday, Drew. You may have to hire me. You know what I mean? I may get thrown out on sale tomorrow at the Steelers, I'll be out looking for a job, and hopefully one of you guys has gone on to be successful enough where you can, hire me for a decent wage. I got standards of living now. I can't go.
It's understandable.
I can still get out and do some weed whacking for you if you need me to, but I got to make more than minimum wage. I'm gonna need at least like $10.
That was always my thing too. Is like, and we've talked about it with a few people on here before. You were never above anything, that's huge for, say, an intern or someone who just comes in. You were always working on something, and it'll sort of segue into my next question. And as a mentor and teacher, again, you put it head on the nail. You explained everything whenever we were doing it, and that's what I was like, wow, this is incredible, because I'm learning actually what I'm doing has a purpose behind it. What type of leadership style? The one that I saw was leading by example. Would you say that you're using with your crew to make sure that you're getting the best out of them on a day-to-day basis? Because again, like you said, 10 weekends in a row is a long time and a lot of work. What are you doing specifically to have those guys come in and do the best work they can do?
Well, yeah. You just try to lead by example. I mean, no one wants to be like, well, I'm not going to work for this a-hole. He's like, he's sitting in there behind his desk. He doesn't even care, and I always ask the guys, I'm like, hey, this is why we're doing this, and this is the way we're going to do it. But I always ask too, like, what did you do wherever else you worked? Is there a better way? Like, is there something I'm missing? Because a lot of times, even if you've never done it before, sometimes just having like, that's better, like a fresh perspective from somebody. It's like, why are you doing it this way? And I'm like, this is the way I've always done it. Like, no one's taught me a better way. So, I mean, even the interns sometimes will just be like, why don't you just do this? And I'm like,
Probably
Nolan.
Nolan.
Well, Nolan talks enough. I mean, sooner or later, something right's going to come out. You know what I mean?
Eventually, right?
Yeah.
I remember you asking me one time. I was like, I don't know what. I'm here to learn. I don't know what you want. But no. Could you sort of go on with that? Could you explain sort of like the crew setup? How many guys you have? Usually, how many interns you are working with on an annual basis? And then also, if you could sort of explain what their jobs are. And I know that's sort of fluid, especially with the guys that you have with Andy and Billy. They're sort of all over the place. But could you give them an idea of what sort of their specific jobs are, in a sense?
Sure. Yeah. 3 full-time guys. All went to Penn State. Andy Lipinski, Bill Ellinger, and John Fox. Andy bounces around from the practice facility up to St. Vincent most years. And Bill will bounce back and forth between the stadium and practice facility. And John Fox, he pretty much stays at the stadium all the time. But yeah, we usually roll with maybe, as few as 1 intern to maybe like 3, just depending on, how many guys I get, or guys or girls, to apply, and then sometimes a couple seasonal guys. Full-time seasonal type work, maybe like, 8 months of, 40, 50 hours a week type thing. That's, I mean, most of the guys are pretty much plug and play. John kind of does a lot of stuff outside the stadium. Andy and Billy are just pretty much plug and play, like whatever you need. Like, hey, we're going to paint today. We're going to mow. We're going to spray, airify, top dress, whatever. Those guys have been around, and they don't need me. They can just go do whatever. So if that explains the responsibility thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I don't usually do this, especially with sort of the setup of the podcast. Do you remember how you hired me? Sort of. Do you remember what happened? Because I didn't apply for the job.
Oh, I think Matt dropped me your resume.
And I want to sort of bring that up because, like, it sort of speaks to what the community as sports turf managers are. Can you sort of explain sort of why you ended up calling me and sort of how I ended up in Pittsburgh? And it could be just simple, and I could just be completely off here, but I thought I'd just ask.
Oh, I kind of remember, I guess. I know I don't think like that season I didn't get anyone from Penn State to apply. Like for whatever reason, I must have pissed off my current interns. Like I said, I didn't get it done or whatever. So and I don't know. Maybe we were in the playoffs or whatever, and I didn't get my internship posted. I'm like, oh, somebody, we'll have some guys come along or girls or whatever. So anyway, that didn't happen or something fell through. So, I was like, hey, I need some help. And I was talking to Matt Brown from the Pirates, and he's like, well, there's this kid named Drew. Andrew Miller, he works with us up at the Mets, with Bill Deacon and you can call him. And so, yeah, I did. I think he gave me like 2 or 3 resumes, and I called all of you guys, and then I think you were the person who said yes. I think. So I think that's the way it went.
Yeah, no, it was really random because I remember I was walking down to the shop at Tech. I'm like, ooh, like, wait, what? What are we talking about? And then you said Matt had given me the resume, and I was like, oh, okay. And I was just sort of shocked. And again, it was sort of just, I guess, from person to person. I just think it's incredible how things like this can come out of it. Like in that summer, I learned more than most any job I had from you, and it was just by chance that, again, from one of my former bosses, just a quick little help, and the networking is phenomenal. And I'm sure you guys grew close, and we had Luke on earlier. I know you were really good friends with Luke Yoder. And I just think it's great to sort of see how tight knit this industry is, and really shows how great overall getting into this industry is for everyone. Um, Sort of going into a different aspect. You were talking about cultural practices a little bit time ago. Um, the thing that I thought was fantastic when I was there is that you really took serious the fact the sod farm is where it all starts, and you've said it a couple times now. You actually visit the sod farm frequently. Is that correct?
Yeah. Most not so much this year, but yeah, most years, maybe 5, 6 times.
Which I think is crazy and awesome all at the same time, because it really shows how dedicated you are to the field and how it will play when it actually gets there. How often are you going to be doing things like spraying, top dressing, stuff like that, once it's installed?
Yeah. We usually spray once a week, maybe sometimes during the season up to twice a week. We're really trying to get, you know, trying to get more growth out of it, trying to get some recovery. Top dressing usually, during the season it just varies, whenever we can work it in. But, I always say, 12 tons per acre per month during the growing season for Kentucky Bluegrass. So we try to hit that. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It just depends on how many games we have and things like that. But yeah, I go to the shop on a lot because I want to get the best shot. You know. So
Make that connection.
right, you got to be fair with those guys too. You can't be yelling at them all the time and complaining like you didn't get what you want. It's when I go out there and I say, hey, let's do these things, and they do them, that helps out my side. And if it doesn't, then that's kind of my fault or whatever. But I just find it easier doing that than ordering sod and then getting whatever you get and then yelling, complaining about it after the fact. When you have an opportunity to do it, and be as far ahead of the game in the game as you can. I just think that's smart. I can screw it up enough on my own. I might as well start with the best stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that I thought was crazy when my first day actually, we were moving the field from Hines up to St. Vincent because of a POA issue on field 2, I think. It was field 3 maybe. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, I thought that was before you. Yeah, well,
No, that was my first day. We're like, hey, we're moving the field. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, it was a good field, but we didn't want to waste it. We were going to have all those concerts.
All the concerts. Yeah.
Yeah, so we brought the crew in from Tucko and harvested that field. Yeah, and then took it up to St. Vincent and put it on the oldest field up there. Yeah, it had a lot of POA annual on it. That's right.
Yep. What I was shocked by was that everybody knew everyone from Tuckahoe because you guys have worked so closely with them, and again, you're making that connection with them. But again, I was like, you guys literally know everyone. I'm just like, I'm behind the job here. Like, what's your name again? Oh, but again, that's another thing with you is just making those connections and just being a good person to those that need it. And you're talking about give and take with front office and all that. That was one of the biggest things that I learned with you is being understanding and working with those around you in order to have good results in the end. With everything that we sort of gone over, say Chris Ecton of today gets a chance to tell when you first started in Pittsburgh, something that'll help you with your job preparing for the years to come. What is it that you would tell yourself sort of preparing for your job with Steelers?
I would, you asked about like what had changed a lot. And the way you saw it as NFL field manager, it's changed the most. If I could go back to 2000 and 2001, I'd be like, hey, this is the blueprint. This is what you're going to need to do. When we first started, like I worked for another guy or a couple of other guys, when I first came to the Steelers. When I was able to take over, I had some ideas, and we tried some of those. Some worked, some didn't. But the thing about it is you could only, if you try something, you had to wait a whole year to see if it left the shot or not. It's not like, hey, you try something and then like, next month you do. Like, you're like, hey, we're going to see this in 2 days and see what happens. We're going to try to use 2-year-old shot instead of like, 11-month-old shot, So, you always, initial thinking would be like, hey, the older the shot, the better it is, but that's not always true. Sometimes 18-month-old shot is best. Sometimes it's not better to be older. We didn't know any of those things. We're still trying things, not as much now as we did, but it took a few years to get it right. But you could only try one thing a year. Once you got one of those things right, then you have to like, all right, what else can I do with this? And try to make it better that way. I think it's knowing how to stop. I don't have my hand. I forgot my stand.
You're totally fine.
So I was like holding it. So I must have just
got a little tired.
Yeah. My hand just kept like falling slower and lower.
It's all good. So I hate to bring this up, and it sort of just goes right into your sodding and everything. There was the time in your career where you were faced with adverse conditions while you sodded. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. You're talking about 2007 where the punt stuck in the field. Yeah.
For those students that don't know, there was a punt. And if you want to explain it, you can explain it way better than I can. There was a punt that stuck in the field. When I mean stuck, it didn't bounce when it came down. But I'll let you explain the situation. If you give an idea, and again, like you said, you want to know, wish you knew what was right for sodding. What would you have changed in that situation, in a sense?
There was a few things I could have changed on that one. We played 4 high school games on Friday, and then we played a college game on Saturday. And then Sunday, we tried to sod the whole field and play a Monday night football game. But the problem was that a hurricane came, the remnants of a hurricane came up and hit us, and we ended up getting like 6 inches of rain. That Monday day and night. So I think it set a record for the amount of precipitation in Pittsburgh in a 24-hour period. But the thing that messed us up the most was our seams on our tarp leaked, and they had always leaked a little bit. We didn't know how badly they were leaking and how the fresh sod was going to react. I mean, in retrospect, if I could have done, I should have put something underneath, because it was Velcro seams and the Velcro was together, but Velcro leaks, a little bit. And it probably wouldn't have mattered if we would have gotten an inch or maybe even 2 inches, but we got over 6 inches that while the field was, not totally while the field was covered. We had to take it off in that rainstorm, the cover. But when the guy punted, the ball came down in an area where one of those seams had leaked, and that's why that the ball plugged. One of the reasons why. But yeah, I mean, if I could have went back, we'd have probably raised the seams up, put something underneath there, had a different closure system. We now have a different closure system for our tarp. The way we sodded the field, I mean, we sodded, 2 acres, a little over 2 acres in basically a 24-hour period. And there was a lot of prep work that went into that too. So there wasn't a whole lot that we could have done to do that any quicker, because we could only move so much stuff in and out of the tunnel. Not to mention the building, we were flipping goalposts, we were changing out goalposts, and we were changing the scrim and all that kind of stuff. So we only had like one tunnel we could really use, but we could have probably changed a little bit of the way we put the sod in, and we could have started painting a little bit quicker. But it was not a good situation. We tried to play 6 football games in basically 4 days, 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Monday. And we had like 6.5 inches of rain. Yeah, so it was
6.5 is unbelievable. Like that, it's like unheard of, really.
Especially in November. Yeah, we stayed all night getting ready for the college game, and then we worked all day for the college game, and then we stayed all night prepping the field, and then we stayed all day Sunday, sodding. I mean, like, I didn't sleep for much, a couple hours every day for like 4 days, and then it turned out to be like the biggest disaster that I've ever had in my career. And yeah, the worst thing, though, it may have been the hardest I'd ever worked, and it didn't work out at all. So it's a very humbling experience. And yeah, sometimes no matter what you do, things don't work out right. So that's, I mean, I may have told you that it's always going to be okay or whatever when we were working, but
that was just
that was probably
make everyone else feel good.
Yeah, I think I just probably read that situation, been like, I've done way worse than this, so we'll figure it out.
I mean, you're in an impossible situation, really. Even if you didn't resod, it would have been 4 or 5 games. Yeah. You said beforehand, it was already impossible to deal with. I mean, it
was going to be bad.
You're talking about even high school fields. We don't do that, and we have different sports and whatnot. We don't have 5 games in 3 days, so it's definitely
and it wasn't on a brand new field. I mean, this was going to be like games like 15 through 20. It
was the time for the change.
Yeah, we had already had like 2 preseason NFL and probably like 5 regular season NFL and probably 5 college games. So we were already probably 12 or 13 games in before we did these 6. So yeah, it wasn't like we had like, hey, a brand new field, just, I mean, that may have been the best thing to do, was meant to replace it before the high school games a few weeks before, and then roll into that with, with the field all prepped and stronger. Still might have not been perfect. Still would have had a hurricane come through, the remnants of a hurricane, and drop a bunch of rain, but probably would have been better. But, yeah, you live and you learn, and you try to never burn a bridge and treat people, the way you want to be treated, just in case on the off chance. And you're going to screw up. It just, if you do enough stuff, you're going to screw up. No one's perfect. So like you host enough games, or you're gonna mess up, and you hope you've earned enough confidence from the people that you work with and that you work for, that you can, they still believe in you, going forward. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I treat people the way I do. And then yeah, just because you never know when life's going to throw something crazy at you, and you're going to need somebody's help, or whatever, if that makes any sense.
No, for sure. I mean, especially with you and when I was there, I mean, you had a great relationship with the Rooneys. I remember going up and taking care of their landscape and whatnot. And again, that's just the kind of person you are. And that's why, again, something like that's not going to hurt you, in a sense, if that makes it hurts, but you know what I mean by it doesn't hurt you.
Yeah, it still hurts a little bit. Just
oh no, I can't. I'm sorry. I didn't mean I didn't mean to bring that up there.
Yeah, it was 13 years ago. It was 13 years ago, believe it or not. So
that's a while. There are more things like yesterday on the phone, you said it's been 4 years since I was there. I was like, oh wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, a lot of football games since then.
A lot, way too many. Yeah. When you were in that time, do you use Game on Grass now? Does Bluegrass do that, or is that just strictly Bermuda?
Game on Grass, that's Chad Price's product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are different forms. Am I wrong in saying that?
Well, yeah. I mean,
not like Game on Grass. I apologize. Do you use plastic?
No, not for Bluegrass. Yeah, it's too hard to roll through with it in the summer where they're growing it. It's a little bit too warm. Yeah, if I had the opportunity to grow Bermuda grass, it would definitely be on plastic, though. Yes.
Gotcha.
Or sod.
No, for sure. I was just curious because if there was like back then, it wouldn't obviously have been available to you. Sod hasn't changed that much since then. In your situation, is there anything like that is used now compared to then that would have been different for you? But
no, I mean, we're the sidekick. Yeah, I mean,
that saves a lot of lives for working to move that heavy sod. Yeah.
It was more just a timing issue. Yeah, I don't think
for sure.
Really,
Gotcha. The last thing I wanted to talk about with everyone that we have on, can you sort of explain to the students, because these are obviously high school students that are on right now, the importance of the hands-on experience and having those opportunities in, say, an internship or in just, again, even in our classroom? How important is that to you as an employer when you're looking for someone to come and work for you? Because I feel like, again, this is me personally, I feel like the hands-on and the different jobs that I had actually helped me in a sense of getting jobs, like working for you with very little knowledge of who I was and with all that. How important is that to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, when you're going to hire someone new, you want to be comfortable with that person. It's, you're always more comfortable working with someone, that you've worked with before. I mean, when one of my guys moves on, for another, when I'm looking for a full-time employee, I mean, the people that come to my mind. The first is like, hey, who have I had in interns the last few years? And, would they be interested in something? Or, when someone calls me and says, hey, this guy's taking this job, I need, this, I need to replace him. Have you had any good interns the past few years? So it's the most important thing, really, when you're trying, networking in this space is it's the most important thing, I believe.
For sure. Is there anything that, other than like the hands-on, anything you see that could better set them up for success in a job, like say working for the Steelers? What is it that they can do to better themselves as a candidate for a position?
Well, I think, when you're going through school, you just need to take advantage of your summers and, during your school, working during school too, even if it's like 10 or 15 hours a week. You just need to get as many different experiences as you can, like, hey, one summer I'm going to go try to do some warm season grass, one summer do some cool season grass, or go somewhere like Virginia Tech or the University of Kentucky, and maybe you're going both at the same time, just so you don't limit yourself. You don't want to
be impressive going to both schools at the same time.
Huh?
That'd be impressive.
I mean, both
no, I got you. For sure.
But yeah, that way I worked golf for a little bit too, because most of my background was growing Bermuda grass. So, you don't spray Bermuda grass very often. There's not a lot of pesticides that go out. So when I was in college, I was like, hey, what, I need to, get stronger in this area. So ended up working at a place called Andover Country Club for a guy named Chris Ecton, where he had a pretty nice budget, but not a budget where he could have a full-time spray tech. So he was like, hey man, if you want to come in, and be our spray tech, if you can work, 30 hours a week while you're in school, or 25 plus work all summer, we'll let you do all the spraying. So I was able to do that, and that really helped me, even though it was golf, but I always thought, well, if I have to move to a place where there's not a sports field job, maybe there's a golf job, or just kind of, it helps to network with those guys too, the golf guys too, a little bit. So I just thought it would make me a more rounded potential, candidate for jobs and stuff too. So
for sure. Sorry to add this in, and I'm curious because I did both Bermuda and Bluegrass. How did you see that sort of impact your job now, especially with mainly working with Bluegrass? Your time was at South Carolina. I'm sure you were working with a bunch of Bermuda grass. Would the differences help you at all in sort of understanding and maintaining those fields? Because obviously with Bermuda, it's way more aggressive in dealing with the fact of that. And does that sort of translate at all? Because I'm sort of curious to know myself personally how you sort of saw it. Because personally, I went through it, but I'm curious what other people say.
Even when you're growing Bermuda grass, I mean, you're still overseeding it and stuff. So you're learning a lot about ryegrass and figuring out how to get that stuff up, overseeding with it, and whether it's blue or warm season grass. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you just kind of learn to look at grass and be, say, well, this is stress, what, how can I alleviate some of the stress on the plant? I guess it can get you in trouble a little bit too, with the differences, thinking you may know something about that because of the one grass. I don't know. I tried to be open-minded about the whole thing. I know it was a shock, to move to Bermuda grass, or from Bermuda grass to bluegrass for football, because I'd never worked with bluegrass for football, just softball and baseball before I came to the Steelers. But you catch on pretty quick, So
And that was what was incredible for me, was seeing that difference, especially in football. I hadn't seen it yet because I was in New York, but you don't see the traffic that you see with those guys, So it was definitely really cool to see that. And I'm sort of with you where it's like it's not really that much of a difference in the sense of you're trying to overthink stuff. But at the same time, it's cool to see both aspects of it. So we usually wrap everything up with this last little tidbit for the kids. Do you have any words of advice just going forward, whether they're going into the turf industry or just approaching college and stuff like that? Do you have any words of advice that you can give the kids that you think, from your experience, it's important to understand when going into college? Obviously, you said you were going to be an engineer, and that wasn't really going to work out. Any sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that.
In another life, maybe it would have.
Any words of wisdom for the kids?
Yeah, I don't know. You try to look to do something that you're interested in, it's going to be, no matter what you do, you're going to have good times and bad times. And it's a lot easier working through the bad times if you semi-enjoy at least what you're doing, and just, I think in every walk of life, like the more you can network, the better off you are. So like once you figure out like what you're going to do, try to get yourself into it, get a job in that area. And even if it's, something, even if it's super low, just get in there and try to understand what the people are going through. So when you go to get a job, you have the background of your education plus a little bit of the people skills and a little bit of the, the understanding about what the people in the job you're going for go through. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning, I'm starting to forget now. Hopefully I'm learning more than I forget.
No, you're not.
But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm still digging ditches like I'm, in my 40s. So I don't know if I'm the best guy to be like, hey, give us some good advice on how to, stay out of that ditch, fixing that irrigation head by the time you're 43 years old,
That's the fun stuff. Come on, you know that.
Yeah. That's...
All right, guys. Do you have any questions? Any student questions, guys? The questions have dwindled over the week, so are we all good on questions, guys? All right. One thing I will say before we go, guys, always appreciate the people that you've worked for, because Chris, I mean, I thank you for giving me the opportunity that you gave me. I learned more from you than anyone else, and you always were there for me whenever I need anything, even now. So again, I'm eternally grateful for everything you did. If you ever need anything from a high school teacher, you know where to find me. What do you guys say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.